as practitioners or striving practitioners, dietetics is something that always comes up. You know,
what is
diet, like what we eat.
Diet,
right? So like vegetarian, non-vegetarian, veganism is quite popular these days. What would the Yoga Sutras speak about this? And actually, Swamiji, you have also mentioned that sometimes that because strictness in dietetics also could become a hindrance, and also you brought up a good point earlier that sometimes that can someone not be self-realized if they eat animals, right? Like Swami Vivekananda had fish, right? So
well, I'm not going to respond to that last part, but clearly the Ahimsa tradition is vegetarian, and if you're asking about Patanjalian yoga tradition, it's clearly vegetarian. So that's just a given. So in other words, why would you, apart from the dietary aspect of it, if you're really able to see the Atman in all beings, and you're able to see the suffering in all beings, and the Jains are particularly powerful here, and they're saying, can't you see the animals suffer? Can't you see that just like you flee when your life is threatened, they flee when their life is threatened? It's very powerful. So the reason for Ahimsa is compassion. In our modern day, the reason for a vegetarian diet tends to be selfish, right? The environment, health, the economy, right? Or if we don't eat, if we don't feed cows, all that grain we could solve world hunger. So they tend to be, in a sense, selfish. Whereas the arguments in ancient India were compassion-based. Why would you if you're an enlightened being and you see the Atman, as Krishna says in the Gita, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini, you see the Atman in all beings. Why on earth would you contribute to an activity that causes suffering? So it's a given that it's certainly in the yoga tradition that Ahimsa means vegetarianism. Let's be clear that the Ahimsa tradition is a vegetarian tradition, and not just in Hinduism, but in Jainism and in early Buddhism, I would say, although that's another story. So then can one be a yogi? And the other thing about meat, apart from the compassion aspect, from a selfish point of view, it creates tamas in the mind. It's dead, it's rotting. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about sattvic food. That's a good place to look. So there, anything that's rotting is tamas, anything that's dead and rotting. So therefore, when you eat meat is dead. I mean, you buy it, and they pump it full of preservatives and color to make it not look dead, but it's disgusting. So if you eat it, it's rotting flesh. Or you're supposed to call it something else? It's rotting flesh. So if you eat that, apart from, let's say you don't give a damn about the animal, compassion, throw that out the window. But meat has a tamasicizing effect. It will create tamas in the mind. So even from the selfish point of view, I want to be a practitioner. From a Patanjalian point of view, I want to nirodha my mind. To nirodha the mind has to be completely sattvic, 100% sattvic. And so therefore, anything that's tamasic is an obstacle, is an obstacle to that goal. So for that reason as well, meat, both from the point of view of compassion, and that's the higher reason, but from a sort of also from the point of view of attaining the goal of chitta vritti nirodha, vaisharada, you have to be full clarity. You can't have meat in your system, because that will produce tamas.
Thank you.
Tell me how you really feel, right?